Chapter 13. Revolutionary Alaria. Callie set foot on her homeworld for the first time in 3 years. Alaria was not that different, physically, from the last time she had seen it. It was still a planet with sprawling continents and vast oceans. The lush green farmland and deep blue skies above evoked the same imagery in Callie's mind as the Alari flag. Politically, Alaria was a different story. While she and her friends were staging their escape from the Stellaris, a full-scale revolution had swept Alari civilization. The Manifesti had seized full control of the nation, and they were still in the middle of reforming the government. After landing on the surface, Callie asked her Manifesti escort for a few minutes to walk around before heading to the final destination, and they obliged. Callie, Ruto, Dak, and Teak disembarked from the shuttlecraft on the outskirts of a small village named Nikalor. This is where the Dakara family ranch used to be. Callie gave her friends a tour of the ruined farmstead, and they admired a herd of wild fanti on a grassy hillside. Before being uplifted to the Holy Favarian Empire, the Alari were a deeply agrarian society. Nearly everyone lived in small farming communities, and Callie's ancestors raised livestock near Nikalor for as long as there were written records. But then, roughly 300 years ago, Callie's family came into their vast fortune. The Dakara family left their ranch behind and moved to Varnala, the Alari capital, to start their new lives as aristocrats. Once Callie and her friends got reaccustomed to their homeworld's gravity and air, the Manifesti escorts loaded the foursome into an armored car and drove them to Varnala. The Alari capital was a vast city built on a river delta, adjacent to the ocean. With ample space to build in most directions, Varnala grew outward instead of upward. The metropolis extended dozens of kilometers in each direction and contained only a few skyscrapers. Callie and her parents knew little of what was coming. They all knew that they were going to participate in a trial of some kind. So they were very surprised when the armored car drove past the Supreme Court building and instead parked in front of the most important building on the planet. "Whoa! The ANC building!" Ruto breathed. "I never thought I'd live to see it." The Alari people held their democratic system of government in high regard. So, naturally, the headquarters of the Alari government was a very grand-looking structure. The Alari National Congress building was a massive structure decorated in marble and bronze. The blue and green flag of Alaria waved proudly above the structure as the group walked up the marble steps. Looking around, Callie realized the Capitol complex was very busy. Government workers moved quickly between administration buildings, talking urgently on cell phones. A few people were speaking to holographic images of other people, projected into the area by flying drones. Even more drones were buzzing overhead, some moving between buildings, carrying small loads of cargo. Other drones were photographing a nearby protest. A flash mob of Manifestis were singing and dancing just outside of the Capitol grounds while the police looked on with perplexed expressions. Inside the ANC building, Callie finally saw firsthand the evidence of the recent Manifesti Revolution. The interior of the Capitol had been turned into something resembling an art museum. Paintings adorned the walls, while sculptures and holographic art took up some of the floor space. Colorful ribbons hung from the light fixtures, dazzling everyone who passed under them. The rainbow light effect was amplified in the entrance hall, where Manifestis installed a strange art piece underneath the famous glass door. Callie, Ruto, Teak, and Dak were guided into a wide hallway, and after walking for a few minutes, found themselves in the Hall of Congress. This place was where the ANC did all of its work. On the ground floor of the hall, some 500 desks and chairs were arranged in a horseshoe formation around a stage. Each row of seats was set higher than the row in front of it, turning the ground floor into an amphitheater. A massive, semicircular balcony on the second floor allowed thousands of spectators to watch their government work from almost any angle. Even in here, the Manifesti Revolution had left a mark. As she was escorted into the hall, Callie spotted dozens of legislators wearing colorful and outlandish outfits that identified them as Manifestis. To her left, Callie saw the National Mural, a painting that depicted the history of Alaria. Someone was projecting a hologram over the mural, one that reimagined the National Mural in a very provocative light. Callie looked away quickly, wishing she could go back to a time when she had not seen the ANC founders in such unflattering positions. "They're really going to have a trial in here?" Dak said, looking around. "In front of the ANC?" The Hall of Congress was not in its usual configuration. Specifically, the center stage had been set up for an adversarial debate, with 2 podiums on the rear platform, 2 desks on either side, and a third podium about 10 meters in front of the other 2, with its back facing toward the 500 congressional seats. Callie, Dak, Ruto, and Teak were made to sit down in the front row. They occupied a row of desks which, according to the nameplates, belonged to legislators from the 15th Southern Polar District. Alaria's internal boundaries were usually determined by geographic regions. Teak looked around, taking note of the other spectators in the room. "Don't look now, Callie, but your parents are here," he hissed. Callie fought the urge to scream as she whipped around in her chair. Sure enough, Rin and Eris were seated nearby, a few rows back. They looked genuinely terrified and were glancing around frantically, the color drained from their faces. "Van's here too," Dak said. "He's by the door." "What the hell is he wearing?" Ruto whispered, nodding her head in Van's direction. Callie spotted Van Beeren across the room and found her urge to scream being replaced by the urge to laugh. "He's wearing a prison jumpsuit!" Callie giggled. "What's happened to the hero's welcome?" "Come to think, did anyone see the Stellaris when she arrived?" Dak said. "Something like that would stick out like a sore thumb over Alaria." "No," Ruto said. "Stellaris isn't here. I don't think it's even in the system." "Oh, do you think the Special Forces made off with the ship and just left Van out to dry?" Ruto asked. "If they did, I'm not going to complain," Callie said. "The new Manifesti government clearly has an issue with Van, so they're all good in my book." The hall was filling with people now. Mostly Alari, but visitors from other worlds were here as well. Representatives from the newly founded Into Alliance stood in the back to watch the proceedings while correspondents from Xenonian News set up their camera drones before letting them take flight. A pair of AAF soldiers moved onto the stage and announced to the crowd, "We will be acting as bailiffs for today's trial, which will begin shortly. Please rise for the Alari National Anthem and the entrance of the Alari Presidium." Callie, Dak, Teak, and Ruto stood up to join the rest of the crowd in a rousing chorus of "Advance, Alaria Fair," while at the same time a group of people entered the room. These people were, by a wide margin, the single biggest consequence of the Manifesti Revolution. The Manifesti had overhauled Alaria's political system. Throughout the galaxy, there were 5 different types of governmental authority: democratic, oligarchic, megacorporation, dictatorial, and imperial. One thing all 5 of these systems had in common was that a single person served as the leader of each government. There was one Commissary General of the Kelasan Republic, one Life-Giver of the Mawir Caretakers, one Revered Elder of the Skildari Confederacy, one President of Into, one Galactic Emperor, and so on. This is how nations are governed in space. Except for Alaria. Up until a few weeks ago, the leader of the Alari government was the Chancellor, a member of the National Congress who was elevated to a position of leadership. After the Manifesti takeover, the office was abolished outright and the Presidium established. The Presidium was a council of 8 people, acting as collective head of government. The duties and responsibilities of executive power were shared between the members of the council, while the leadership role, titled First Among Equals, rotated between Presidium members on a regular basis. The new Presidium consisted of 8 people: an old man, an old woman, 2 middle-aged men, 2 middle-aged women, a very young-looking man, and 1 child. Dak shouted, his voice drowned out by the national anthem. "Gar! Mocha!" Callie recognized both of the youngest members of the Presidium. Gar was Dak's 20-year-old brother. The man was holding the hand of a girl who looked to be about 14 or 15 years old. This was Mocha Jabasim, the youngest sibling of Dak and Gar. The national anthem ended, and everyone returned to their seats. Dak leaned over to speak with one of the Manifestis. "What's Mocha doing here?" he hissed. When the Presidium was established, the Manifesti Convolution wanted at least one member of the council to speak on behalf of the young people. The Manifesti replied. However, a few of the minority parties expressed concern about allowing a young person to join the Presidium, so a deal was struck. A brother-sister pair would be elected to the Presidium and would be counted as a single person instead of 2. Together, these youngsters are officially serving as Taras Jabasim. You'll get to see more of Jaras once the trial starts, since they will be acting as the judge today. "What?" Dak raised his voice in a mixture of outrage and confusion. Dak started moving to stand up and confront the Presidium, but one of the Manifestis grabbed him and said, "This is neither the time or place." The Manifesti said, "In a few moments, Miss Dakara is going to need you. Please stay close by." At that moment, both of Dak's siblings separated from the rest of the Presidium and stepped onto the stage. The 2 bailiffs reached out and draped both youngsters in purple cloaks. Then Gar and Mocha stood behind the 2 podiums at the center of the stage. Callie could not help but smile. Mocha Jabasim had tied up her bluish-purple hair in a bun and pulled her cloak tightly around herself, hiding her small frame from view and forcing everyone to look her in the eye. Mocha seemed, at least for the moment, to be living up to her title as youngest head of state in the galaxy. She had a decent sense of presence, anyway. Next to her, Gar banged a gavel and called for silence. "Please take your seats. The trial will now begin," Gar said. Gar gestured to himself and his sister before continuing. "We are Taras Jabasim. On the orders of the Presidium of the Alaria National Congress, we will serve as the judge in today's trial," Gar declared. "Ahem. Court is now in session for the trial of Vaki Dejir. Will the counsel for the prosecution please approach the court?" Callie's jaw dropped. "Wait a minute," she said. "Did your brother just say Vaki Dejir? Did I hear that right?" Dak, Teak, and Ruto did not reply. They were distracted by another surprise development. "You've got to be kidding me," Teak said aloud. "It's Okepi!" Okepi Insteb, dressed as smartly as a corpse-like Bavarian could be, approached one of the desks on the stage and placed a briefcase on it. As he unpacked his paperwork, Okepi said, "My name is Topi Tet. The prosecution is ready, Your Honor." Callie, Dak, Ruto, and Teak were all left speechless. Okepi had given a false name as comfortably as though it was his own. Teak rose from his seat, ready to call out Okepi's lie, but the judge was already speaking again. "Is the counsel for the defense ready?" 2 Manifestis rose from their seats, and each one grabbed Callie by the arm. "That's you," one of them said. This sudden twist caused Teak's words to die in his throat. Meanwhile, 2 voices cried out from behind the group. "Callie, you've got to save us!" As Callie was escorted to the defense attorney's desk on the stage, she spotted her parents in the crowd. They were still looking panicked as they called to their daughter, begging Callie to save the Dakara family. "Callie Dakara, formerly of the Imperial Navy," said one of the bailiffs. "She will stand as the counsel for the defense." "Good," said Gar Jabasim. "Bailiffs, bring forth the defendant." "Excuse me?" Callie said in a hoarse whisper. I could have sworn you said the defendant was Vaki Dejir. You don't mean... Callie did not finish her question. At that moment, a bailiff stepped away from the stage and took a small box from an Alari soldier in the crowd. He placed it on the third podium and opened up the top. Callie could see a fine, gray powder. Ashes. All that remained of Vaki Dejir, infamous space pirate.